The consciousness and the cosmos. A path to one's own inner cosmos.
In assistance of the more profound understanding of the current planetary transition.
A stimuli that accompanies the pilgrim in his return to his cosmic home.
The consciousness and the cosmos. Radio program Voxim, Planetary Service Center. Hello dear listeners, my name is Arwina. We will be hosting the program.
We previously discussed the rays, which are expressions of cosmic energy. Is the fourth ray, harmony through conflict, always governed by the law of karma?
Siempre. Todos los problemas que tenemos, que enfrentamos, las discusiones, las fricciones, sirven para una quema de cierto tipo de basura que está presente en todos nosotros.
Daniel Gagliardo says, always. The challenges and discussions we encounter, along with the tensions that arise, serve to eliminate unnecessary aspects within us. This process enables us to experience a state of harmony that aligns with the law of karma.
Daniel continues, in a general sense, there isn't a fixed rule. However, the process of burning or combustion of accumulated residues, whether in individuals, groups, or various activities around the planet, plays a crucial role in facilitating the resolution of certain aspects of experience that consciousness must develop. This process can lead us closer to what we would currently define as harmony. It's important to note that these manifestations of harmony will vary significantly under higher evolutionary law. As soon as harmony begins to emerge, we risk placing it at a disadvantage once more, leading us to the brink of another conflict. The periods of harmony are finite, and the times of equilibrium that we experience are also limited. Fortunately, the fourth ray possesses the ability to invoke harmony, especially when we undergo a transformative process, often through experiences of conflict and friction. This transformation acts as a purging force, releasing what is no longer beneficial within us and alleviating the unnecessary burdens we carry.
So, under the law of karma, it could have a higher expression or more extended periods of that harmony. Is that right?
Yes, all of us can do that, each one to the extent of their possibilities. We all go through disharmony and friction, and we can extend ourselves further depending on the frictional inertia we are immersed in. Alternatively, we can go through friction and try to overcome it as soon as possible. Harmony is always limited and unstable, as is equilibrium. However, that limitation, that fluctuation, that alternate knowing, spaced out knowing of harmony, leaves us with a very large evolutionary output. What it brings to consciousness is combustible to carry on regardless.
Revisiting the theme of fourth ray, harmony to conflict, you note that any clash strong argument or intense encounter creates a burning that liberates.
Even if we are not conscious, and even if we believe we are burning alive, the last thing that would occur to us is that we are being freed from something.
Aren't we also contributing to the pollution for one another? I find myself in an imbalanced struggle with another person, for example. So I'm not creating karma or anti. How is this resolved in general? On one hand, it seems to be cleansing us and benefiting us, and on the other hand, we're in the middle of a conflict.
The issue is addressed when we permit a greater degree of burning, which we metaphorically add to the waste tank. Essentially, experiencing a specific release creates a sense of decompression and liberation within consciousness. The law of karma adeptly weaves and assesses various contingencies to ensure that there is no ongoing overload. Without this balance, evolution would become unattainable. What is being released stems from a reservoir of negative actions, essentially the subconscious, where these elements are stored. This reservoir is expansive and has multiple origins. At times, issues stemming from various incarnations may ignite a conflict. It's not about the totality of what is owed in each lifetime, but rather the core of what is being processed, which can have roots in several past lives. The friction we experience in the present does not equate to what is impacting us across many situations and incarnations. Thus, no matter how much we accumulate, there is always a margin that supports our potential for evolution, which remains immeasurable.
Daniel mentioned before that if this liberation doesn't happen, it generates inertia and stagnant resentment.
Bajo ley de karma, todo lo que involucra una experiencia de conflicto es amplísimo. Y dependiendo la combinación de los factores en juego, quiere decir de los participantes, de los protagonistas, ¿sí?, como de aquello por lo cual se inicia el conflicto. Es muy amplio, muy amplio. Hay cuestiones de conflicto que nosotros no las identificamos como eso.
Under the law of karma, the concept of conflict is quite expansive. It varies widely based on the combination of factors involved, such as the participants and the elements that trigger the conflict. There are issues we encounter that we may not recognize as conflicts. Many positions become normalized, yet they are actually integral parts of the broader conflict present on the planet. An aspect we might not fully comprehend as contribution to the overarching problem is the conflict itself. In essence, every test inherently carries the potential for conflict, depending on what the stimulus or our internal guidance presents. We can approach these challenges with an understanding of their nature and strive to resolve them in the most appropriate way. However, if we fail to do so, Even when it seems there is no apparent conflict, beneath the surface lies an energy of conflict. This energy manifests as friction. The mere fact that we are prompted to navigate a test or situation, yet find ourselves unable to resolve it, as we ideally would, based on our inner guidance, signifies the presence of this conflicting energy.
Are conflicts necessary at a certain stage, or are they a consequence of the absence of stability within a being?
We can provide additional information that may be beneficial to some individuals beyond the personal conflicts we each experience as unique egos and personalities. It's important to recognize certain conflicts that have become so normalized that they often go unacknowledged. One notable example is the normalization of animal abuse and killing by our society. In this light, our humanity remains entrenched in an ongoing evolutionary conflict. This is just one aspect, but there are numerous ethical and moral considerations that encompass a broader spectrum, including the killing, consumption and mistreatment of animals, all of which represent just a part of this complex range.
If we examine this matter closely, it raises the question, why does humanity rarely experience harmony on a broad scale, but only in small groups of individual instances? The answer lies in the pervasive nature of conflict, which remains largely uninterrupted. Consequently, the gap between the arc of conflict and the corresponding arc of harmony is significant. For thousands of years, we have maintained a continuous arc of conflict, which does not allow for the emergence of a subsequent arc of harmony.
As we've noted, we experience harmony on a microcosmic level, primarily within individual or small group settings. However, on a larger scale, humanity has yet to resolve a conflict that has persisted for thousands of years. It's possible that the conclusion of this extensive arc of conflict will coincide with the completion of the planetary transition, at which point harmony may be realized.
How about if someone had the need, the firm decision, the intention not to bring, at least externally, more conflict into the situations, but more harmony.
Sí, podemos dar un dato más que tal vez sirva a algunas personas. Nosotros, independientemente de los conflictos que individualmente vivimos como egos y personalidades, también señalamos que existen conflictos que están tan naturalizados que no se entienden como tales.
The key distinction is that a catalyst is an element that intervenes without undergoing any alteration itself, whereas a person attempting to do the same would ultimately impede their own process and, as a result, harm themselves. In essence, it is impossible to extricate oneself from a karmic radial experience and attempt to navigate as if governed by the high evolutionary law. This is because appearances, regardless of the level at which the conflict manifests, are significant. Whether the turmoil is over or subtle, the nature of the conflict remains irrelevant.
The realm of conflict operates in three-dimensional field. You can choose to block it at one level, specifically the level of appearances, while still experiencing its effects at other levels. It's important to remember that conflict encompasses these three distinct layers. You might manage to block it at one or even multiple levels, but you could still be affected by it on another. It is also possible to temporarily suppress it across all three levels. However, such suppression leads to a significant buildup of karmic pressure, which will eventually result in a breakthrough akin to a dam busting, an outcome that arises specifically from psychic blocking. By hindering the psyche, one can create superficial and temporary conditions, but inevitably this self-imposed barrier or reservoir will reach a tipping point and overflow.
The significance of conflict lies not in attempting to suppress it, but rather in embracing it and understanding the reason why. In certain contexts, conflict becomes an essential component. One might say, I have conflicts, I experience them, or I create them at will. But ultimately, it is the underlying energy that shapes these interactions. Often, a person may navigate life without encountering conflicts, simply because the energies and the laws at play prevent specific circumstances from arising, thereby inhibiting conflict in that moment. Conversely, life itself dictates the framework of our situations, leading us to engage with conflict if we fail to skillfully manage the energies that are, at that time, the foundational elements of our experience. Therefore, the most effective approach is not to attempt to eliminate a conflict, but rather to address situations with the potential for conflict in the most constructive manner possible.
At some point, all of us enter situations where latent structures may lead to conflict. However, it is possible to avoid activating those structures by addressing and accepting the situation before they emerge. At times, conflicts might be unavoidable, as they are part of the learning journey that energy itself presents to us. While we can attempt to suppress conflicts, there will inevitably come a moment when energy drives us to a limit, compelling us to confront the accumulation of what has been repressed in an extremely chaotic and traumatic context.
It has recently come to our attention that regarding conflict and harmony, even amidst fluctuations, as one diminishes the gap with their inner self, they may begin to respond differently. This process could lead to a gradual ability to navigate situations with fewer conflicts. Could that be the essence of it all?
Puede ser, pero tengamos en cuenta que a veces uno no ingresa al conflicto, pero lo termina viviendo en solitario. Porque a veces la prueba es esa. Porque en realidad vencer el conflicto potencial
That may be true, but let's remember that sometimes you don't directly engage in the conflict, yet you find yourself grappling with it alone. This can often serve as a crucial test, in essence, overcoming potential conflict in a situation involves two approaches, either avoiding the conflict altogether or managing the situation in a way that prevents it from escalating. Yet the true challenge lies in learning to process these experiences psychologically and, more importantly, emotionally. This results from choosing not to attack or harm another person, which is a common experience, isn't it? It's vital to recognize the two layers of conflict that might emerge in any situation. The first is overt, while the second remains solitary, private, and almost intimate, if you will.
And impassivity in this case?
La impasibilidad es una herramienta óptima en todos los casos, porque llegar a tener impasibilidad es óptimo. Y en el conflicto, cuando uno transita el conflicto, el grado de impasibilidad que tenga hace que el conflicto sea menos dañino, por lo menos para él mismo. ¿Sí? Porque en el momento en que se está dando un conflicto, supongamos que hay 2 o 3 personas que están viviendo un conflicto.
Impassivity is an optimal tool in all cases, because impassivity is optimal. And in the conflict, when one goes through the conflict, the degree of impassivity one has makes the conflict less harmful, at least for oneself. Because at the moment when a conflict occurs, let's suppose that 2 or 3 people are experiencing a conflict. Among them, the one who was not impassive is suffering terribly.
There are 2 approaches to navigating conflict. One involves experiencing intense suffering, while the other entails engaging with the conflict in a detached manner, characterized by impassivity, meaning the ability to endure situations without succumbing to suffering. This doesn't imply that the experience is devoid of discomfort, or that it cannot evoke a degree of pain within the individual. Instead, being impassive means acknowledging pain without being overwhelmed by it. It is important to note that impassibility refers to the capacity to navigate various situations without suffering. This does not imply a lack of emotional response. It is possible to confront a situation with considerable distress while maintaining a level of detachment.